This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. With your host, Tyson Gifford and William Rowick. Episode 140. Recorded January 11th, 2018. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. I am your host, Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at TVE, William Rowick.
Hello.
So, today we are going to be talking about Peaky Blinders. We are going to be talking about The Magicians, and we are going to be talking about Black Mirror. We'll be talking about these three shows over the next 6 weeks, and then we'll keep talking about Magicians because it goes more than 6 episodes, but the other two, we'll finish off there.
There are two, only go 6.
Magicians is like 13 episodes or something, I think. So we'll be talking about that for the next 13 weeks. But the other two, they'll finish up in 6 episodes. But so those are going to be the main topics of our conversation for the next little while. Before we get started with those topics, though, there are kind of 2 pieces of news that we want to go over quickly. First up, the smaller story, and this is the more recent one, is that Conan O'Brien had a pet project in development. It just got picked up by Go90, another streaming service that's, I think it's free. I'm not sure. Maybe it's charged. I have no idea. It's one of those small ones like...
I don't even know what that is.
Like, what's that one that NBC owns? CISO. It's like a little tiny streaming service like that, you know?
Yeah, I think CISO is actually dead now, but yeah.
Yeah, CISO got killed off, but there's still lots of little streaming services that do this kind of stuff, and Crackle is Sony's one, and this one is Go90. I think Yahoo owned it, so I think whoever bought Yahoo has that now or got sold off. I'm not sure. I could be completely wrong on that. But anyways, the project is a remake of Critters, and it is going to be called, I believe, Critters: A New Binge. So I'm guessing they're dropping it all at once to feed into that title. If you don't know, Critters was a movie franchise in the 80s about these little round, ball-like life forms that it kind of looks like a cross between like a softball and a porcupine.
Critters was like a low budget sort of like rip off of Gremlins. Like, it was. But it was these obvious. It was very
alien
like,
invaders from space. So it was a little different in that.
It's a different concept, but it was clearly inspired by the Gremlins films. Like,
there were a few.
Gremlins was like a big success, and like so a lot of companies, when something gets big, people want to mooch off of that success, and that's what Critters was basically.
Yeah, there were like 3 or 4 different ones that were basically trying to get that Gremlins formula.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I remember Critters vividly, mostly because of the VHS box. I did like see the movie, like on TV or something, but like my most vivid memories are, and I love talking about these old 80s horror movies because it brings up memories of going to the video store with my mom and going to the horror section and just looking at the cover art of all the horror movies, the VHS, because out of all the videos in the store, like the horror movies had the most interesting artwork on the VHS boxes, in my opinion.
Yeah, they always had like really crazy,
just like some crazy, like freaked out shit. And Critters might not have been the most freaked out, but like it was a very clear shot of, the creature itself. It looked crazy. It looked scary. Like that captured my attention. That captured my imagination and, made me want, I need to know more about this, that reaction.
I think with Critters, the thing I ended up liking was, the kind of angle it had of like, they were like these kind of like space pirates almost.
Yeah.
These like dangerous criminals that like this whole species that was like flying a spaceship and escaping these bounty hunters. And so there were these bounty hunters
tracking them. Yeah.
Yeah. With these really big ass guns, and they took on like the faces of people they saw on TV to fit in, like this like rock star or something. It was like, I really liked that angle of it. But yeah, Critters was, kind of like a goofy Gremlins-like movie, but took place in like farm country or something. This new TV series is going to be set in Burbank. That's actually where like Conan O'Brien's production offices are. It's like about 20 to 30 minutes south of where I live.
Right.
It's a real city. It's a big Hollywood movie city. I mean, that's where they filmed. In Burbank is where they filmed like the Goonies and stuff.
I'm not surprised Conan O'Brien would set it there. Lots of possibilities, I'm sure, especially coming from somebody with like such a creative comedic mind as Conan O'Brien. I'm sure we're going to see some fun stuff. I'm actually surprised that this is coming from Conan O'Brien. It's kind of weird because Critters was definitely, I would say black humor, but it definitely veered more towards horror, straight horror than Gremlins did. Like, because Critters had like the blood and the gore and the stuff that you wouldn't see in Gremlins. You know?
And that seems a little bit outside of Conan's wheelhouse for his style.
Yeah, it seems a little outside. So I was like kind of surprised when I learned that. I was like, really? Conan O'Brien's doing that?
So he must have just liked those movies, you know? When he was like going to college or something, he must have been into Critters.
He must have been into Critters, yeah, I guess.
So Conan, I mean, we know him as a late night host, and of course he got his start as a writer on Saturday Night Live and The Simpsons.
Right.
Famously writing the monorail episode of The Simpsons. But besides that, he's had a few other shows that he's kind of had involvement with through his development company, his production company, Kanoko, that was started at TBS around when he got his deal with TBS. And as part of the deal, he got like, you know, a production company that he was able to kind of pitch things through. And so if you've seen like People of Earth on TBS, that's an example of a Kanoko production. So yeah, Critters sounds interesting. I liked the Critters movies. I remember like watching them on TV like you. I remember seeing them in the video store, seeing the box art for them and stuff. But yeah, so Critters coming to Go 90 of all places.
This is another piece of news on Netflix. This is related to the spinoff of Riverdale, Sabrina. Netflix cast their Sabrina recently.
Yeah, from Mad Men. It's the daughter in Mad Men.
The daughter in Mad Men, yeah. Apparently this is going to be more of a horror series.
And it's not CW. It's like, I think it's
it's not CW. Netflix is actually producing this series.
Which is interesting because it's supposed to have like direct ties to Riverdale or something.
It is, it is supposed to have it is a direct spin-off of Riverdale. I think the deal with Netflix producing it is because this is gearing more towards a more R-rated material, that the CW I don't think can particularly air. And also Netflix, has a strong association with brand because Riverdale actually kind of blew up on Netflix.
Yeah.
You know, like
it did probably better on Netflix than it did on CW.
Yeah, it did better on Netflix than it did on CW, I think, and the viewership like basically doubled because of Netflix. So it's had an interesting effect on that show, which is another thing that we're seeing with the new reality of television now. It's another way in which streaming services like Netflix have affected the landscape.
I'm checking, by the way, because I'd mentioned Go 90 for the Critters thing. So I wanted to update. I was just checking. It's from Verizon.
Oh,
they're the ones that launched Go 90, not Yahoo.
So basically, Go 90 is going to have better bandwidth than Netflix pretty soon.
On Verizon.
Yeah, on Verizon networks, yeah.
But it's going to be really slow on Time Warner.
Yeah, really slow on that, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Shit Pie.
Yeah.
It seems to be it's ad supported.
Okay, right.
So that lowers the barrier of entry for Critters. So I'll definitely give that a shot.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's Conan O'Brien and you know,
I'm a big Conan fan.
And that is a fun franchise. Those were pretty fun movies. If you're just looking for classic 80s B movie cheese, you can't go wrong with Critters, I don't think. And combine that with Conan O'Brien and like just his comedic brilliance, and I think you're looking at something special. So I'm definitely down for that.
Yeah, I just downloaded the Go 90 app on my phone, so I have it ready to remind me. But yeah, we said there were 2 stories. Will, you just threw in like a third.
I did, so because I'm trying to
get to the big story now, which is that, and this is big for us, like a lot of people would probably just kind of like read past it, but we're huge fans of Bryan Fuller here. We talk about his works constantly, with Hannibal and American Gods.
Basically what happened is Bryan Fuller farted. He farted. It smelled like roses, like yes. Beautiful pink roses. We just had to report on it. No,
it's just so amazing. No, but for reals, he is working with Anne Rice and her son. I think his name's Chris Rice. They're adapting her vampire universe.
Yeah, the Vampire Chronicles into a TV series, and this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Maybe not so much.
It's had a few movie adaptations, mainly Interview with a Vampire. That was a really big movie with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt in it. And then they also did Queen of the Damned, which covered 2 books. It covered The Vampire Lestat and Queen of the Damned.
I am super familiar with this stuff. Not because I'm particularly into Anne Rice, but my mom was crazy about Anne Rice. She was like obsessed with Anne Rice and all her vampire books. She had like every Anne Rice book. She made me watch Interview with the Vampire, and she made me watch Queen of the Damned. I know for a fact that she would be like out of her mind with excitement at the prospect of the series. Like she would already be setting the DVR. And so like this is pretty big, and then Bryan Fuller's involved, and I'm just like,
that means we're setting our DVRs.
We're setting our DVRs, exactly. This is pretty amazing. So
he's not officially running the series. He's just kind of basically helping them, like work it out, like block it out as a script for the pilot episode and stuff, as a way of getting it pitched and out there for different channels to pick up and stuff. So he's kind of involved in that capacity. Though the producers of the show, besides Anne Rice and stuff that had mentioned this, say that they're trying to encourage him to run the show. They want him to run the show, and so does Anne Rice.
I want him to run the show.
I want him to run a show.
I want him to run the show, but then somebody like pointed out, so this is going to be like another 1 season, and it's either canceled or Bryan Fuller bails TV show.
Hey, Hannibal went 3.
Hannibal 3. But damn, even if it doesn't last, damn if I'm not interested in what Bryan Fuller can do with this material.
Yeah. The only thing that tempers my excitement of this a bit is just the fact that vampires have gotten so played out in like the last 10 years.
I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be real. When I first read this, I sort of read it as Bryan Fuller joins the Vampire Diaries.
Oh.
What?
That would be weird.
Yeah.
Hey, a lot of people love that show, though. Some people I respect really love that show, so they say it's really good.
Really?
But
is that actually good? It looked like just a dumb teen soap opera. So
apparently, it reached beyond that. I watched the first couple episodes and it was kind of a dumb teen soap opera, but apparently over time it reached beyond that and kind of got like to more surprising areas. But yeah, I mean, it would still be a weird move for Bryan Fuller to join a show as a writer,
Yeah, it'd still be a weird move. But no, but I gotta say, you say vampires are passe. I say vampires are never passe as long as they're done well.
They're due for a good comeback, kind of.
It's been a few
just that
years,
our current shelf of vampire stuff is kind of
it's been
it's like Twilight.
Yeah.
And True Blood started good, but ended very generic and bad too.
Oh yeah. True Blood got very bad towards the end, and it started with a lot of promise. I was actually really enjoying that show in its early years, and then it just degenerated. I feel look, the material is strong. Anne Rice's vampire universe is definitely not Twilight.
Yeah, and Lestat's an interesting character.
Lestat's an very interesting character, and he's a character who's already very well written, well fleshed out. And Bryan Fuller can take that and add more gravitas to it. We've seen what Bryan Fuller can do with established material, with established characters in Hannibal, and breathe new life into it, sort of elevate it to the next level.
No, they just gotta cast Mads Mikkelsen as Lestat and Hugh Dancy as Louis.
Yeah. Yeah, Hugh Dancy as Louis. I don't know. Mads
and then
Mikkelsen
just slowly,
good,
just straight up give up and just tell it as Hannibal.
Yeah, just tell it.
It starts out as an adaptation of that with those two actors, and then it just slowly it's just Hannibal now.
Mads Mikkelsen is good, but I don't think he can be like very effeminate. Like Lestat is. Like almost androgynous.
Hugh Dancy could.
Yeah, not Mads Mikkelsen. Man, he's got too much testosterone. But Mads is a brilliant actor. Maybe I'm sure Bryan Fuller can find a part for him in this.
Oh, there's all sorts of like crazy undead characters in her universe.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the guy that that Antonio Banderas played in Interview. Can't remember his name. But yeah, there's lots of like larger than life like vampire characters and stuff.
But that's assuming Bryan Fuller can get Mads, because apparently Hideo Kojima stole him. So.
They're probably already done with him. They probably with the video game development cycle, they probably already mocapped and recorded all of his voice.
Yeah, they probably they probably already finished all that.
Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen is always doing tons of stuff though, but I mean, he was in the Star Wars universe, but kind of in a one-off role. His character is gone, so
he was in a Marvel film in a one-off role.
Yeah, not really a reason to bring him back in that universe.
Yeah,
by the way things ended with him.
Yeah, nobody's clamoring for that character to make a comeback anyway. So yeah,
it's like he's kind of done a bunch of stuff, but he's kind of done like little kind of brief one-off things, and we know he's huge on Bryan Fuller. Having worked with him on Hannibal, and
I like to think that he is taking these one-off roles in order to keep busy, but also keep himself available for Hannibal season 4.
I like to imagine that too.
Yeah,
I like to imagine any version of the future in which a Hannibal season 4 exists.
Exactly.
Let's get on to our main topics now, though. So we're going to be talking about 3 shows, as I mentioned earlier. We're going to start off with Peaky Blinders. This is season 4, episode 1, The Noose. Peaky Blinders, the entire 4th season, has dropped on Netflix. It aired a while ago, a couple months ago in the UK.
I think, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what Netflix does. It airs in the UK, it finishes its run, and then it comes to Netflix like a month or 2 later.
Pop every episode all at once on you.
Yeah. So the 6 episodes are dropped, but we're going to be talking week to week. So we're talking season 4, episode 1, The Noose. So this picks up like directly where the last season left off.
A shocking betrayal.
Yeah.
By Thomas Shelby of his entire family.
But that whole storyline lasts all of like 10 minutes.
Yeah, we kind of switch gears. It's one of those things where like, and like I've watched enough TV now to where you see this a lot, where they will end a season on this big dramatic twist, this big dramatic note, and then you think it's gonna be like a big thing for next season, but it's kind of resolved in the premiere, and then they move on to like some other plot line, and they do that exact same thing here.
So they very quickly resolved that the drama of it came from his whole family was basically like right on the verge of being executed because somebody had expedited the order, and just in time, some officials were notified of the information that Thomas Shelby had on the king and Winston Churchill, and like all these kind of like
very incriminating information that Thomas
it managed
Shelby,
to just in time to stop the executions, basically as the nooses were around their necks.
Right, basically, and this traumatizes them, especially the mother there,
Polly.
Yeah, she is the most traumatized by it to the point
she goes a bit off the deep end.
Yeah.
Which leaves Michael very concerned, and Michael's kind of going off the end on his own. I think partly because of like dealing with the stress of how off the deep end his mom has gone.
Right.
But he's been using cocaine. She's been drinking herself into a stupor
and taking pills.
His sister, who wasn't part of the arrest, has been in New York, and John is with his gypsy wife, pissed off and ornery at both of them at Tommy, not wanting to deal with him. And then his older brother Arthur is kind of like in recovery, no longer involved in crime because his wife is like all against that.
Yeah, and his wife is very much the controlling type. Yeah.
So he's just kind of going along with her whims, doing some volunteer work and driving people around and doing things because he's just bored out of his mind. So everybody's kind of like out of the business basically, except Tommy and Michael.
Tommy comes to a confrontation with a woman. I think she's representing the female workers of Tommy's factories. The women are not getting equal pay with the men.
They're getting half the pay.
Yeah, they're getting
that the men are getting.
The men are getting, so she comes to a head with Thomas. Thomas, very sarcastically, not sarcastically, but he basically throws down the gambit by saying, okay, well, I'll raise them 5 pounds and then I'll cut the men's wages by 5 pounds and ask the men how they like it. And so,
yeah, so he's confrontational with her, which immediately goes like, oh, they're setting up her as this new love interest.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the way I take it too. So that's going to be the love interest conflict of the season, I guess. But the big story really of the episode is that the Sicilian mafia is after Tommy and his family now because of a
sent them a
murder.
black hand, which is means they're marked for death.
Yep, they all get black hands. They're marked for death. This freaks Tommy out,
He's calling his whole family back, telling him to come back to
tell him to come
Birmingham.
back to Birmingham because he wants them all in Birmingham where they have the advantage, and he wants them all together because he knows the only way they can defeat the Sicilian mafia is if they're together, because separated they'll all be picked off one by one.
Particularly wanting them in Birmingham because, as he said, like basically in Birmingham, like almost every man you turn to see is like a soldier in their cause.
Right, exactly. They're safe there. Like everybody in Birmingham is basically on their side.
Yeah. So he wants them all there. Everyone's kind of reluctant to regather because they all have their different issues with him, but they're all freaked out about this black hand too.
Yeah, they're all freaked out.
And they're angry and they're like, screw you, Tommy, this is your fault. And he's like, I don't care, but if you blame me or not, just get to Birmingham. We need to ride this out.
We'll ride this out and then we'll separate again. And
they're marked for death because of something that happened in the last season. It was just a very brief scene.
Right.
In the last season in which, he killed off 2 members of the Sicilian mafia that happened to be in town that just kind of were almost just in the way.
Right.
Like they just weren't, it wasn't even like a big conflict for him. It was just kind of, they were, in the way of his plan when he was dealing with trying to get his son back. And that's basically, Angel and, Vincente, who were killed from the, Sicilian mafia. And now, they're marked for death. Then it's the New York City wing of the Sicilian mafia led by Adrian Brody. You notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. Adrian Brody. Especially noticed that because, they linger on him.
Yeah. he chewed the scenery a bit.
He chewed the scenery a bit. Yeah. It's like
came in with his hat on,
with his hat on. Like the other two go through. The other two go through, and it's the mafia. But then he walks in, and suddenly it's special, right? Like he's like the guy's asking him, "Are you here for business or pleasure?" And he's like "I'm here to make him an offer he can't refuse." Yeah. So yeah, they got Adrian Brody. That's the star power for this season.
Yeah. I saw some of the poster art for when they dropped the new episodes that they had a picture of Tom Hardy's character. So I wonder if he's going to be back in it or if that's just old poster art that they're still using.
I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought Tom Hardy's character back, but I guess it depends on how.
I wouldn't be too surprised because it's the same guy that does Taboo for him that does Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, it does Peaky Blinders.
So
obviously,
I think they film around the same area. It's like he's just there while they're doing it.
It depends on how busy Tom Hardy does it. He's pretty in demand actor right now.
Yeah, he works a lot though, so he takes on a lot of roles.
Yeah, that's true.
If they had filmed this like this year, I'd say like it's unlikely because he's doing Venom right now. But the fact that this is something that had filmed quite a while ago makes me think like, yeah, it's a pretty good chance Tom Hardy will pop up again.
Yeah,
as his Jewish gangster. This is kind of like the big push of the episode. Tommy's trying to get everybody up to Birmingham. Everyone's kind of like pushing against it. Arthur seems like he sees the need to go back to Birmingham too. He's not happy about it, but his issue is trying to convince his wife, who just kind of doesn't want anything to do with the crime anymore. He's got kind of Polly and Michael kind of sorted. Michael not kind of realizing how big of a threat it is, I think. And Polly kind of, still in a state where she's kind of out of it, but realizing how bad of a situation it is. The bigger issue is John. And that's mostly because of his wife, Esme, who's this gypsy wife that is just like, screw Tommy. We don't need him. We don't need this. And we showed how that kind of attitude ends up playing off at the end of the episode.
Yeah, because her attitude's like, oh, we can defend ourselves. We don't need Tommy. We're good. Right.
And Michael rides up to get them, basically saying, why aren't you down here yet with us?
You need to get your ass to Birmingham. Don't argue. Just do it. And, whatever you have.
It's the mafia. And John's like, we're the Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, he's like, well, you're not the Peaky Blinders without the rest of your family.
Yeah.
Basically try and talk sense into him. He's not listening. Esme's not helping. And then it happens. The Sicilian mafia rides up.
They pop up out of a hay cart.
Yeah.
And say, hey. They pop up out of a hay cart and say, hey. And then they open fire.
And Tommy, they open fire. And
John looks like he's pretty much gone.
Yeah, he's gone. I mean,
it would be kind of weird if he survived that, especially considering the era this takes place in.
Merely a flesh wound.
Yeah. Michael, I'm not so sure on. The last shot of him, he looked like he was gone too, but I think he only took like
Michael, I think it looked
a bullet or two.
It looked like it didn't look like he took that much fire. It looked like the bullet that did hit him wasn't fatal. He's probably just knocked out.
But the last shot of him is like he's down on the ground with his eyes open. So it's kind of like not moving,
He's probably just like kind of in combination of being in pain and being in shock because it happened so suddenly.
Yeah, it would be weird if John survived this.
It'd be weird if they killed off both of them right there.
Yeah. And like we said, like neither of us are expecting John to survive this. He looks gone. He just took like a full frontal assault of bullets. He just faced it head on, just kind of bravely but dumbly just walked out with a single gun against all of them.
Yeah, that was really stupid. Right? I can defend myself. Let me just walk into a hail of gunfire. Yeah, okay.
And so, yeah, that was the end of the episode. I should note also that this is all happening on Christmas Day in 1925.
Yes, Christmas Day. They make a big deal. So basically next episode is, Tommy's going to have to deal with, his brother is dead. And that is...
And then he comes back as a zombie. No.
Yeah, it turns out this is the Walking Dead universe. Surprise.
There's one other thing I think we forgot to mention, which is that after Tommy gets the letter, he what?
Tommy kills the sous chef.
Yeah, so Tommy is getting pestered by one of his servants, basically saying the chef keeps asking me when when your party's coming up for Christmas, because basically Tommy had planned on having his whole family over for Christmas. Everyone kind of like spit on his invitation, and so basically he's like saying, well, I'm still going to throw the most awesome epic Christmas party anyways. I'm just going to invite all the gypsies up.
Right.
That live on his property. And so he says, yeah, this is how many people are going because these are all the people with us. I don't know when they're coming up. They haven't decided yet. We're just keeping it loose. Why is it such a big deal? Why does the chef have to know? After he gets the Black Hand and after a little bit of time goes by with other events and that issue comes up again, he puts two and two together and says, what's the nationality of this chef? And finds out he's Italian, and he starts to suspect that he looks up some information on him and finds out that he's connected to one of the villains of like season 1 of Peaky Blinders.
Right.
Who's an Italian gangster. And he starts to kind of like go, okay, something's not right here. And he goes and he talks and the person that had been telling him all of this information is like, yeah, the chef seems fine, but the real problem is the sous chef.
Right.
And he's like, the sous chef? Like, who's this guy? And you end up finding out like, okay, well, clearly this chef is being not wanting to. He's an actual chef, but he's like basically being forced to like act as a shepherd to bring in this sous chef who's actually an assassin to kill Tommy. Tommy, he's being forced to do that, because if he doesn't, he'll be killed or his family will be killed or whatever other threats are being used on him. And Tommy ends up, violently confronting the chef, gets everything he needs from him, and then uses the chef to lure in the sous chef, who comes in knowing something's up and prepared to kill, but Tommy gets one up on him and murders him himself.
Right.
And this shows how that at the time Tommy's freaking out about the fact that the Italians are coming for him. This shows him they were already in place, and that their urgency to find out what was going on with the Christmas Day dinner and everything was the plot when they were going to kill him. So Tommy's got wise to that, and that means, okay, well now that means they're attacking us right away. This isn't an attack that's going to come in a month or so. This is an attack that's imminent. So that's that. Peaky Blinders, season 4, episode 1, The Noose. What are you thinking so far of this season?
Pretty good. Off to a decent start. Can't
very Peaker's Blindy.
Yeah, very Peaker's Blindy. I love the music this episode. I love the remix, the cover of the theme song. When we saw Tommy's female nemesis / potential love interest enter the show.
The women's suffrage angle is good. It's good. It's pretty blatant to what they're going for, because this is totally Tommy's type. It's a strong woman that stands up to him. Is totally his type. And also I saw playing a remix or a cover of the series theme song when she enters the show is I thought very blatantly pointing out that this is Tommy's equal. This is yeah. So this is what they're playing at for the episode. But I'm liking it. Got Peaky Blinders back in my life. It'll do to hold me over until Taboo comes back, because that's the show from this showrunner that I really care about. But I still like Peaky Blinders, so it's good. We'll be continuing to watch it. Next up, we have The Magicians, season 3, episode 1, The Tale of the Seven Keys. I have to admit, I watched this kind of last minute today, and I was half falling asleep because I needed to take a nap because I got up early.
Okay.
So there might be a few things I'm a little weak on. I'm gonna rewatch the episode later tonight.
Might be a few things I'm a little weak on too. So it's fine.
But I wasn't sleeping because I was bored or anything. I was sleeping just because I'd been, got up early and was editing all morning.
Right. Yeah, because we had that long
Nintendo podcast we did. Yeah. So I was just tired from that. But
aren't you glad we did all that talking last night?
Yeah. But The Magicians is still a great show.
Yes.
One scene I particularly really enjoyed was the fairies are just torturing Elliot and Margot and basically making it so that they can't even have a moment of peace to talk. And so they've been trying to find little ways to try to subvert it. Some of them have been not going well for them. One turns out they find that there's an area that the fairies are allergic to, so that gives them one place to talk. Yeah. But the more awesome scene is when they decide to start using pop culture as a secret language to
that's a talk. Code because Margot notices everything she tries to do. The Fairy Queen knows what she's doing.
It's funny, when she's how are they finding this out? And then they move the camera over to that swamp.
Yeah. She'd literally just do something, and the second after she does it, the Fairy Queen would be there and she would know. And she's and Margot's just how? And
the Fairy Queen's taunting her, just wearing, playing with her eyeball.
Yeah. And we find out that the Fairy Queen knows because of the eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
She's using it to spy on, using Margot's eyeball to spy on Margot.
Okay, see, that's one of the things I missed.
Oh, you missed that. Okay, that was because the scene that you were just going to discuss where they're talking in code, that's what that was all about. That was the scene where...
I knew they were doing that to get around it, but I didn't know exactly why. I must have nodded off for a second, right?
Okay, right yeah, that was why, because of Margot's eyeball. Because Elliot opens the conversation with she is I don't watch Battlestar Galactica, so it took me a minute to understand the reference. But apparently, I guess what's that actress?
Okay, I did hear that part. Now that I'm thinking, I just was out of it a little bit. Park something.
Yeah, Grace Park. Apparently, Grace Park's character was actually a Cylon. Whoops! Accidental Battlestar Galactica spoilers.
Accidental spoiler for a 14-year-old series.
Yeah. So apparently, her character was a Cylon. Cylon, except she didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so Elliot was saying, Elliot was going to Margot, you're Grace Park. And then that's when she connects the dots and she makes the realization that her eyeball is being used to spy on her.
Yeah, and then from that point on, they were just using pop culture references to discuss things, like referring to Quentin as Harry Potter, and I particularly liked that one. And Margot expressing her anger and wanting to kill the Fairy Queen by saying she wants to go, "Oh, 7 Brittany." There's little pop culture and geek references, like as a language to get around what the Fairy Queen's able to spy on. I thought that was pretty funny, and they subtitled it too, which I don't think was even necessary because I was picking up on it all without the subtitles.
Right?
Was it subtitled on the screener?
No, I don't think it was subtitled on the screener.
Yeah, they added subtitles.
No, it was. I'm remembering it was subtitled. It actually wasn't subtitled. It was like translated what they were saying on the screener. So like, because you said they were talking in this code based on TV show references and pop culture references.
Yeah, I just mean that part was subtitled, yeah.
Yeah, it basically
like as if they were speaking a foreign language.
The subtitles were translations of the actual references, which I thought was amusing because because I got all these references anyway, except for the initial Battlestar Galactica, because I never watched that show.
For shame, Will. You need to drop everything and watch it now.
Yeah.
And also these 40 other shows. Yeah, that scene in particular I found and kind of had the magic of the magicians that I love. There was also a great scene with Elliot talking to this like peacock guy.
This peacock man who basically tells Elliot that he has to go on a grand quest, right? And
Elliot's like, I don't have time for that.
And he's like, I don't have time for that. And he's like, well, you have to, right? And
I like the one part. It's like, how long would that even take? And he's all, a season.
Yeah. Nice meta joke.
Yeah.
And basically the quest involves everybody, all of Elliot's friends. So like that includes Quentin and stuff in like the real world.
Yeah.
And,
using all these code terms, the warrior, Quentin's the fool.
Yeah, Quentin's the fool. Yeah, using all these
the one-eyed conqueror for Margot, and it's like
all these names. And so and so Elliot communicates with Quentin interdimensionally via these rabbits who can travel through dimensions and basically send messages. Like they could speak whatever message you need them to speak. It's really weird.
It's just a very magician's way of doing it. Communicating through rabbits. But yeah, was funny. Quentin was able to pick up on that, and they were able to put a plan into place to do their part of it. But even before that, you also have Quentin's side of the story, Quentin and Julia's side of the story. With Julia, as we saw at the end of last season, able to use a very paltry amount of magic. And she's kind of happy to use it, but at the same time, she's constantly like downplaying it. And Quentin's like, don't downplay it. This is like the most magic anybody can do right now. Like this is, don't think of it as like a small amount of magic. Think of it as like, this is the largest magic that exists for humanity at this point is what you're doing, And he's kind of like playing her sidekick, trying to get information through their chef friend that worked for Elliot in Fillory, who's a magician. They find out that Bacchus, the Greek god of like wine and parties and stuff, who, the gods and creatures aren't affected by this shut off of magic.
They're not affected because obviously it's the gods who decreed this, and they wouldn't take power away from themselves, would they?
Well, it's like the gods' parents that did this, like so they took it away from humanity. They sent Super Mario to turn off the plumbing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The whole deal was magic was taken away from humanity, not from gods or other magical creatures. This was a punishment for humanity because humans killed two gods.
So we see that Quentin and Julia, they go with this friend of theirs to meet Bacchus, and they have trouble initially getting him. They have to get wasted and then kind of embarrass themselves by singing some song and doing this dance they made up a long time ago.
Yeah.
In order to get Bacchus to open the door for them.
Because Bacchus has to decide that they're fun.
Yeah. He's all like, you guys don't go in until you stop being boring.
Yeah, until you stop being boring. So they get in. Bacchus isn't much of a talker. They're trying to get information from Bacchus. Bacchus doesn't want to talk. He wants to party.
He's just a total like frat bro.
Yeah, he's like a total bro. He's like, you're ruining the vibes. Quentin's like, no, I am not a vibe ruiner. I am not a vibe ruiner. I just want information.
And then he promptly drugs Quentin.
Yeah, he promptly drugs Quentin. Quentin is tripping out. He sees Alice. Apparently Alice ran away, ditched them, decided that trying to start their relationship up again was a huge mistake. And Alice has her own problem. She has a creature hunting her down that she wronged previously when she was a Niflin, I think. Niflin. Yeah. When she was a Niflin.
She had wronged this powerful creature, and now that she doesn't have the power.
Now she doesn't have those powers, this creature knows she's weak, and so it's coming for her.
So she's trying to find ways of dealing with that, including like basically letting a vampire feed on her and trying to get information from him and just trying to find, she's kind of like sorting her own path. So we haven't really seen how she plays into the bigger picture yet. It's more just Quentin, Juliet, Elliot, and Margot in like two separate fronts. But we know that she's probably one of the ones that was being referenced. So she'll have to come into play with them as well on their epic quest.
Well, yeah, I think I think they made it pretty clear that everybody's going to have to come into play on this quest. Like, it's the point of the quest, right?
They have to go to Bowser's castle and convince Mario to turn magic on again.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is how The Magicians is starting its third season. I think it's still good. I absolutely adore the just kind of like weirdness they do with things from Fillory, like the talking bunnies.
Oh my god.
Interdimensional talking bunnies, or the peacock guy with the meta humor.
With the meta humor. Like he says to the peacock guy, says, Elliot, have you beheld a cock before?
He's like, I beheld a few.
I beheld a few, yeah.
He's still probably my favorite character in the show.
yeah, definitely. This show continues to be fun. Yeah, still totally into it.
I'd still say it doesn't have that tension that it had in the first season with the Beast.
It's lacking that tension now.
That went away in the second season though, because the second season didn't really have that tension either.
Right.
Even with Reynard, the god figure, who is like as powerful or more than the Beast pretty much. Even with him playing a part in the second season and killing off a bunch of characters in horrible ways and stuff, it just didn't have the same impact.
Right.
As the Beast did in season one. But like that's now replaced with this kind of like humor that we're getting with Fillory related stuff that's like just really funny.
Right.
Like learning that magical chef talking about having sex with a werewolf. So yeah, it's just lots of like those kind of aspects of The Magicians. It's just kind of unlike anything else on right now.
Right.
It kind of reminds me of what we used to get back in the day with shows like Buffy and Angel, where you'd have like these just kind of like weird encounters. Like it'd be like this dramatic, dark stuff with like magic and rituals, but then there'd just be this weird level of like modernism on top of it that just made it kind of funny and out of place. And that's kind of what we get in The Magicians that we don't really get much elsewhere. So it kind of scratches that itch. So I'm glad it's back, and it's the one show we have screeners for this season. So I'm glad we get to watch episodes early too.
Good.
And lastly, we're going to be talking about Black Mirror season 4, episode 1, USS Callister.
Yes.
So this is going to be an easier show to talk about, I think, for us, just because each episode is like a self-contained story. It's like we're talking about a movie.
Right. So so we can.
This is the Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
So if you've seen the trailers or the promo images for season 4 and you've seen something that looks like Star Trek, this is the episode we're talking about.
This is the episode. And you know that the trailer was intentionally misleading, that you're not getting this happy-go-lucky 60s throwback show. If you went into it...
It starts that way. Like, the opening scene is really retro-looking and funny.
It starts that way, but by design, of course. But, of course, because we know that this is Black Mirror, we know that there's a twist to it. So basically...
It's kind of a double swerve.
Yeah. So basically, the big twist in this is, like, this isn't Star Trek. It's actually a computer simulation. Surprise. I know, real original for Black Mirror, right? Yeah, it's a it's actually a video game. It's actually like an MMO, right? And
there's a direct tie-in also to the Christmas special, White Christmas, where they talked about
I didn't see that one.
Making like kind of digital bones of people.
Oh, okay. I didn't see
this season in particular has a lot of tie-ins to like other.
There's a lot
Black
of
Mirror
references in
episodes.
this. Yeah. There's a lot of references this season. So basically what's going on here is that this is an MMO. And basically it was designed by the guy who in the Star Trek sequence is the captain. His name, Captain Daly, his real name is actually Robert Daly, and he is the CTO of Callister, which is the name of the company that has made this game. And he is the genius, creative mind behind the game. He programmed all the game's code. His friend, he has a
friend in quotation marks.
Yeah, he has a friend who is like the CEO. It's sort of like a Bill Gates, it's sort of a Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak relationship, right?
Except hostile.
Except hostile. Although that relationship did turn hostile too. You gotta remember. It's a play on that. It's a play on that relationship with the idea that Robert Daly is the genius who came up with the tech, and the other guy is the businessman who took credit for it, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of treats Robert Daly like shit.
And he kind of like creates an office atmosphere in which the other employees do the same. So even though these people are like his employees, then they're beneath him in his station. They don't
respect him.
They treat him like they don't respect him. They treat him like he's some like, piece of garbage or something. And they just kind of like openly like diminishing of him as a person. So this is like part of the double twist in this episode, is that you go from this kind of like power fantasy of him in this VR world to showing that he's kind of like this sad sack.
Right.
He has this life where everyone just kind of treats him poorly and you feel bad for him. And you're like, okay, this is our central character and we're going to see his story.
Yeah.
But he's not the central character.
He's not the central. There's another twist. Like that's the thing. Like there's so many twists in this episode because we're initially presented with his power fantasy, right? Where he is in control. He is in charge. Everybody loves him. He is brilliant. He makes all the right decisions. He saves the day. He is the hero. He is Captain Kirk, right? And you think, well, that's perfectly reasonable, right? Surely you would cast yourself as a hero in a video game, especially one that you made, especially if you're being crapped on in your real life. That's fine. Well, the next time you see him enter the game, he gets really sadistically mean to the guy in the game who is the same guy as his boss, as the CEO of the company, right? And you kind of, and you're kind of like, in that scene, you're kind of taken aback. You're kind of like, whoa, right?
Yeah, it kind of takes on this menacing tone. It almost feels initially like, oh, he got treated really poorly. He got jealous because the CEO of the company, basically this girl comes to work at the company.
Immediately
he's impressed with him.
Immediately
because she's impressed with him.
Yeah,
it's like she goes to him and talks about how she's impressed with him, and it's like it's the one moment of validation he has. Like everyone else treats him like garbage. Here's somebody that respects him, and he becomes instantly infatuated with her.
Okay, instantly infatuated. He starts giving her like the stalker eyes, like right away. And it's
at first creepy. It's kind of like on the cute side. It's like somebody who's socially awkward, but is found somebody that's treated him well, and like at this point you're still thinking that he's like the protagonist of the story.
You haven't seen his dark side. That's the thing. It takes at least 20 minutes into the episode before they reveal his true nature to the audience. And then when you see it, you're kind of taken aback because you're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this, right?
Yeah.
When he shows that first flash of cruelty, you're kind of like, what? Whoa. And then it just gets worse from there, right?
Yeah, it just starts going more and more sadistic and he starts being portrayed less as this socially awkward, maybe guy on the spectrum into like this
full-blown
closet sociopath.
Yeah, this closet, like Patrick Bateman. He's like actually Patrick Bateman, you know?
He's like Patrick Bateman with a nerdy exterior that seems like an adorable lead, you know? But then is really just a monster on the inside.
Really just a monster. And this actually wouldn't be interesting without the episode's other twist, which is that the people that he's torturing entering inside the game aren't just AI, computer generated characters that just resemble the people he works with, but they're actually like living
digital clones. Is that how I remember it?
Yeah, digital clones. This is like a really
sentient.
This is like a really weird concept, and I think a lot of people, like reviews I read in this episode, people couldn't quite wrap their heads around this but all you have to understand is that what the show wants you to understand here is that these digital people are sentient in their own right, and they're
self-aware, they're sentient.
They're self-aware, they have thoughts, they have feelings.
They have memories of the real people from which they were taken.
For all intents and purposes, they are real people who just exist in a digital universe run by a complete sociopath. And this is where the drama, this is where the tension in the episode comes from, because we realize that reality through the lens of a new arrival to the game. Because Robert Daly gets obsessed with this woman, he steals her DNA and he clones her into the game. And then we realize what's going on because it switches from his perspective to her perspective. We get a complete
the digital her.
The digital her. We get a complete, and it's pretty abrupt too, right? Because we get a complete perspective shift. And the rest of the episode from that point on is from digital her's perspective. It's no longer from his perspective like it was at the beginning of the episode. And and this is when we realize what's really going on and what the stakes are. And basically what happens is everybody else has kind of given up. They realize that they exist in a universe completely ruled by Robert Daly and that he's basically God. And
it's kind of a little bit like that Twilight episode with the little boy who was like all powerful.
Yes, yeah. It's
and like everyone's terrified of him because he could do anything to them he wants. And so they're always like cheery and oh, you're so right, and this is like a trope that's been kind of parodied or covered by other things. Like Supernatural did a really good episode where they had a demon.
Simpsons did a take on that episode.
Bart had a for Treehouse of Horror. Yeah, Bart so it's kind of like that in a sense, that this is a guy that could do anything. He could turn these people into like spider creatures.
He could take away your face.
Leave them adrift in space where they're still alive, but they're suffocating constantly for like all time. He can do whatever he wants to them.
He can do whatever he wants to them. So, and they've given up, but this woman, she decides pretty much right off the bat that she is not going to give in. She is not going to just let this be her reality, right? Mm-hmm. She is instantly looking for a way to escape. She is instantly defiant.
She's also like the only person there that didn't wrong him.
Right.
Like in a sense. Although there's another person there that the wrong that he committed against him was just getting his sandwich order wrong.
Right. So you find out that he is actually really petty too,
Yeah. But this woman hasn't wronged him at all. And she's sent in here because he's obsessed with her. And he's probably just doesn't feel confident about interacting with her in the real world, so he's just brought her into this world. But he's just as cruel because, of course, what's going to be the first thing you do if you find out that somebody upended you and took you out of your life and put you into the simulation and is taking control? You're going to react badly to that. And so instantly he goes from kind of like fawning over her to like seeing her as just one of the others that he can manipulate or do whatever he wants to and doesn't care.
Right, exactly.
And that's how you that's when you start to really see like just how bad this guy is, just how much of a sociopath he is.
Just how much of a sociopath, yeah. He decides she's there and he can use her just like he uses everybody else.
And the real question is like, how does he have this CEO of the company so broken? Right. And you get a good answer to that as well.
Oh, it's fucked up. It's one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen. Cause he clones his son into the game and then immediately throws him out the airlock in front of the CEO's face, mm-hmm. and then he just like, from that point on, he just hangs that over his head. He threatens to do it again,
Yeah. He still has the genetic material. He has like a little mini fridge with like the genetic material of all these people in the game.
Yeah.
So he could recopy and put them in if ever he wants to. And it includes that son.
So he kind of hangs over it. So that's how he's got him so broken. There comes a point where she comes to think that all hope is lost. but then she sees a black hole, and she realizes what that black hole represents, that it's the update, because they mentioned earlier in the episode that they're pushing through an update to the game, and it was supposed to be pushed through faster. The CEO wanted it by Christmas, but Robert Daly was supposed to go to one of the programmers and try to convince him to push that, and try to get him to make sure to push that patch through as fast as possible. And when Robert Daly goes to talk to him, he says, well, if you give me more time, I could add this feature and make it even better. And since Robert Daly's distracted by this new girl in the office, he's not paying attention to anything he's saying really, and he just kind of okays it, and that delays the patch. And that becomes really important, because since the patch is delayed, this inside the game, it gives the characters inside the game a chance to escape.
Yeah, into the game proper. Like they can't return to the real world because their original selves are still there. They're digital clones.
They're digital clones. They can't exist in the real world.
Like they want to either destroy themselves, and also destroy all of his means of getting them back in the game, right. Or they want to just get out into the main game, which they don't even really think is possible. They think it's going to kill them.
They don't think in terms of they're going to get. They think they're going to die, and this is like, she basically sells it as like, we can kill ourselves and we'll be free. Yeah. And she gets everybody on board for that. But there's the problem of course, because he's got their genetic material, he can just recreate them after they kill themselves, right? So basically, she figures out that Robert Daly's recorder can connect to the real world, because he gets a message. He orders a pizza. He gets a message as pizza's ready in the game, and so he can log out of the game.
And when he's paused, his character's still there, along with his equipment that allows him to control stuff, completely unguarded and unprotected.
Well, no, because they mention when he logs out, he takes his recorder with him. But
there are things that he leaves behind.
He doesn't leave it unguarded. So it's not that simple. But the main thing they notice is that he does have a way. There is a way to communicate with the outside world. One of the first things she tries is because since she has all the memories of like her real self, she can actually use the ship to hack into the internet and send messages to herself and stuff. And so
but not like not like asking for help as herself or something, but like
as Robert.
Basically.
So she sends herself an invite to the game, and it comes up as Robert Daly sent her a game invite, right? And so the real her sees that on her phone, and she confronts Daly about it. Like, did you send me an invite to the game? Like, that's so weird, right? And that kind of tips him off to what they're trying to do. And so he goes back there. He becomes extra vicious. He tries to punish her in the game for that stunt. And the other woman there, who's supposed to be Uhura in the game, the stand-in for Uhura in the game. She sticks up for her, and he turns her into a spider.
Yeah, which is something we had seen another one and knew that was somebody that they had known as well. Yeah,
they have known as well. So that doesn't work. So eventually, she figures it out. She comes up with this grand plan that she's going to fly into this black hole. So she realizes that her Instagram account, or what's supposed to be her Instagram, I don't think they call it Instagram in the show, but basically she has compromising photos of herself online.
And because she has all the memories of her, she knows the passwords and everything.
So she uses that to blackmail her real world counterpart into breaking into Robert Daly's apartment and stealing all the DNA from his mini fridge to make sure that he can't create new clones of them once they do this.
And also to destroy his login thing, so he can't log back in.
Yeah,
which doesn't end up working.
She replaces it with a dummy.
Yeah,
but not without realizing that he had a backup real one.
Yeah,
just use.
So that doesn't really end up. It just shows that they had more to their plan, but it doesn't really work in their favor.
Back in the game version of her takes Robert Daly on a mission. She distracts him by dressing down into a swimsuit and kind of beckoning him to swim with her. And the reason she's distracting him is because they're trying to steal his recorder that can connect to the real world, you know. And
so this part of the story is like a heist film, basically.
Yeah, this is basically a heist film. So they steal it, and what they do is like, and what they do with it is like, you know, they use it to order a pizza for him. And
which is the distraction they need for...
Which is the distraction they need for the real world counterpart to get in there, do what she has to do to steal the DNA and stop him from logging back onto the game so that they can escape. And once he's distracted, they go for it. They start headed for the black hole. He manages to get back into the game, and he realizes what they're doing, and so he jumps into a ship and he races to catch up to them before they can get to that black hole. And this
just
is like
verbally assaulting them about how he's going to destroy them and be crueler than ever before, and just being like really, you know, like scary.
Being like really, really scary. And the whole time you're on edge because you're thinking, oh my god, because this is Black Mirror. You know, happy endings in Black Mirror are not common. So there's this sense of dread, at least for me, there's a sense of dread that they would fail spectacularly and it would just not be happy. But no, they actually succeed and they make it through the black hole. And it's a happy ending for them, but it's not a happy ending for Robert Daly because he gets trapped in the game. And
he's unable to log out.
He's unable to log out. So they show him and he's kind of just like in a, you know, he's trapped, his mind is trapped in the game. And we know because it's Christmas break and that the office is going to be closed for 10 days and because he is not a very social person and he's a shut-in, that nobody is going to check on him.
And he'll die.
And he's basically dead at this point. They escape into the black hole and they don't die like they're expecting to. Instead, they actually escape Robert Daly's server into the game itself proper.
Because they get a chip upgrade and
because this whole time they were on a private server created by Robert Daly that he gated off from the rest of the game. You know, so that he can, you know, fuck around in there as much as he wanted. But they escape. Yeah, it's a total upgrade in appearance and ship.
They get their genitals back because that's another.
So I pointed out it's a very blatant nod to like J.J. Abrams' version of Star Trek, where Robert Daly's server is like the original series, and then when they escape to the game proper is now the J.J. Abrams Star Trek.
That's his true message.
Because there's like the lens flare and everything.
Yeah, it's because the game, the proper game which they're now in outside of his private server is like designed to be like hip and, you know, like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie. So they're just kind of in this like more mainstream version of that Star Trek like universe that they're in.
Right, exactly. And now she's in control of the ship. You know, they run into another player. Brilliant cameo by Aaron Paul at the end of the episode.
This was like a little commentary, I think, on like Gamersgate, his appearance. Because it's the idea, I think, is that they make him like, he immediately like, they show that this guy has like the same kind of like power fantasy that Robert Daly does.
Yeah.
Where he's like, this is my space, you know, like you're in my territory. And like the way he gets all territorial and aggressive about that, it's showing kind of like a weaker version of kind of the same sociopathic mentality that Robert Daly had, which is, I think, like an attack on the whole Gamersgate men's right movement thing, you know, where
I think so.
a lot of people that, you know, we had previously been seen as these kind of like, you know, just geeky, non-threatening presences all of a sudden started like behaving in vile ways.
Yeah, start becoming threatening, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so I think that that's kind of a play on that. It's like the idea of like, instead of the Revenge of the Nerds idea of like, we're all social outcasts and we're strong together and kumbaya, it's like that, like, well, there's a negative side to people that are social outcasts too. They have this kind of need to feel powerful, and this is like how that plays out. So it makes that direct comparison with this player that we see with, you know, the antagonist of this episode, I think. But it's very brief because it's just the end of the episode. It's the happy ending, which is that they just say like, okay, dude, we'll leave, and they take off, and that's it.
Yeah, well,
there's actually the people that wrote that episode or were involved in it, and the director, I think, have talked about the possibility now of doing like a spin-off series following these people in this game.
I actually really wouldn't like to see that because, yeah, that's the fact that this is, yeah, that'd be really freaking lame, because
we've already got the premise. We've already,
you've already got the premise. That's nice. This is just going to be like a clone Star Trek set in like an MMO. That doesn't sound interesting. Pass.
But yeah, it's that just kind of tells you what kind of an ending it had, though. The fact that this is something that was being talked about, means that, obviously this is not a typical Black Mirror ending.
Yeah, it's not.
Even like San Junipero had like a kind of a little bit of a dark finality to its happy ending.
Typical, but I think it was typical Black Mirror in what happened to Robert Daly, who we all assumed originally was supposed to be the protagonist when the episode started. Right?
If he hadn't turned into the antagonist, his fate would be very Black Mirror.
Yes, his fate would be very Black Mirror.
But the fact that it's like justice got served, that's very not Black Mirror.
That's very not Black Mirror. In one way it is Black Mirror, in our way it isn't, because it's Black Mirror in the fact that technology completely consumed Robert Daly in the end and turned on him, which is the major theme, is how technology can turn against us, or just go wrong for human beings. And I think this is definitely, at least for Robert Daly, this is definitely technology going very wrong for him. It's a case where technology enabled these power fantasies, and those power fantasies ended up destroying him, like literally.
Yeah. Before that, they had destroyed him morally. They had allowed him to pursue these power fantasies and not feel guilt about it, and make this separation that kind of made that sociopathic, or he just always was sociopathic. We don't really know.
We don't really know. Yeah, they certainly enabled him to be more openly sociopathic within the confines of his private game.
They allowed him to wear a MAGA hat.
Yes. I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was tense. It was scary. At times it was scary. I feel like it's most effective when you put yourself in the shoes of the protagonist and you imagine that you're literally trapped in an unescapable universe ruled by a cruel god who just sees you as a toy that he could abuse as much as he wants. When you put yourselves in their reality, then that's pretty freaking scary. And so from there, it just becomes like this thriller, and maybe it's not very Black Mirror, but I had a lot of fun with the episode. You could tell they had
that's how you know it's not Black Mirror.
I don't care.
Use the word fun.
In a lot of ways it was. The Star Trek parody was hilarious. By the way, the actor who played Robert Daly, he did like a pretty spot on Captain Kirk. I thought, even the way he almost like resembles him.
Yeah, especially in the opening scene.
Yeah, it was pretty spot on. It was insane.
I'm on the other side. I think it was probably perhaps the worst episode of the season, in my opinion.
No, this is in no way the worst episode of the season.
I know what episode you think is the worst, and that's actually one of my favorites. That just shows how different we are on Black Mirror when it comes to Black Mirror. But that'll make our discussions interesting. So, yeah, I mean, not the worst episode of Black Mirror ever. That goes to last season's Hated in the Nation.
Oh my God.
That's the worst episode of Black Mirror ever.
The bees, not the bees.
Yeah, that was the worst episode of Black Mirror, but I think it's the worst in the season, perhaps. I need to kind of go over it, but I mean, it was still okay. I know, like, I watched it with my mom and my sister. My mom hated it. My sister was kind of like neutral on it, and I was just kind of like, like I
went into this expecting to hate it. Like, I was like, okay, I know what they're doing with this pseudo Star Trek crap. They're just gonna do something totally awful with this, and I expected like I was gonna hate it, and I didn't hate it, and I was kind of surprised because I thought a lot of it was interesting. I thought thought the idea of digital people that were actually sentient, I thought that was an interesting concept.
See, that might be part of it too, is that you said you haven't seen the Christmas special, the Black Mirror Christmas special.
Yeah.
That had a story that touched on that same theme. And this is kind of like they've been doing this season in particular of Black Mirror. They started it a little bit last season, but more so this season. They've been playing on the idea that the whole world is kind of interconnected. Like all these separate stories are actually like very loosely connected to each other. And I think if you watch that Christmas special, you'll see a lot of connections. And the part in particular that you're interested in was a big part of that.
Right. Okay.
So for me, it was like, I've already seen that. And so like the other individual hooks for the episode didn't grab me as much.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, you should definitely watch that Christmas special because it's got John Hamm from Mad Men and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
I heard, but I'm not in a rush to watch it because I heard it was totally soul ruining.
It's not as bad as like it wasn't as much of a gut punch as like Shut Up and Dance was.
And okay. And like Black Mirror has already made me unreasonably angry for like I was pissed off for like a good 24 hours. Like I don't think I've ever been that pissed off at like just something I watched. I was kind of surprised at like my reaction, but we'll get to that in a later podcast. But I'm just saying I don't want to be pissed off by Black Mirror again. So
I don't think it'll piss you off in that way. It's not that kind of episode.
Okay.
It's like soul crushing, I guess, could play a part. It's soul crushing in the way that like, I don't know, like 15 Million Merits was soul crushing.
Oh, okay. Right.
Like in the way of like, okay, the corruption and the shit went out, like the worst future happened, kind of thing, but not in the way of like anger, inducing.
Oh, okay. It's in the way, Trump becomes president of the United States. Like that was a horrifying episode of Black Mirror, I tell you.
It actually was the Waldo experiment. That's in that season too.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But that episode, like, I didn't like that when it first aired because I was like, oh, this is unbelievable.
Yeah. And then reality was like, hold my beer.
Sadly, yes. But yeah, definitely. You should watch that episode just because it ties in heavily to this episode, but also into like the last episode of the season and a few other parts. And it's kind of somewhat connected to like San Junipero even. Well, in the same way that you might have noticed that there was a San Junipero connection to this.
Right.
Just in the sense of like this kind of virtual reality world with sentient beings.
With sentient beings. Even though like San Junipero was different because it wasn't creating it didn't involve digital clones. It involved people uploading their consciousness to a machine.
Yeah, but it's related because they made the decision to make Black Mirror like a connected universe, and so you'll see these little connections. And so basically, what you're seeing in something like this is like an early version of something that would later evolve into San Junipero.
Right, because San Junipero takes place way in the future, right?
Yeah, it takes place quite a bit further along, where this is pretty close to modern day. Seemingly, at least.
Yeah. I mean, well,
yeah, definitely. I highly recommend just anybody watching season 4 in general really should be watching the Christmas special because it ties into like 2 or 3 of the episodes this season.
Nice.
And the episode you hated has a big, a little tie-in with my favorite episode, 15 Million Merits.
Oh, okay.
They have that song playing over and over again with some 15 Million Merits.
It's been so long since I watched 15 million Merits. Like, I think we watched that towards the beginning of when we started this podcast. I
think it was the first Advocates of Great Television.
It was the very first Advocates. Yeah, it's been so long. Like I totally forgot about that. So
that would have been, I think, was that our 25th podcast? Did we do that for our 25th, or did we do it earlier than that? We might have done it earlier.
I think earlier.
Actually, you know what? I think we did it before. I think we did it when it was a text based.
Our first Advocates
when
of
we
Great Television.
Put up a text log.
That was a text log. You're right.
Yeah, before we even were doing the podcast.
Podcast. Jeez, that's how long it's been since
years ago. Because this is episode 140 of the podcast.
That's how long it's been since I first watched Black Mirror for the first time. Wow, that's crazy.
But yeah, so that's it for Black Mirror. We'll be talking about it again next week, along with the other shows. A completely different episode of Black Mirror. A completely different discussion. Until next week, here's what's coming up in the week ahead. by the time this podcast is available on Friday, January 12th, 2018, which is already the case as we're recording with Will because he's on East Coast time, Blind Spot and Taken come back to NBC, Disjointed hits Netflix, and Black Mirror's big competitor hits Amazon, Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams, which is basically supposed to be like a happier Black Mirror, is what I've been hearing about it. It's based on stories by Philip K. Dick, who basically wrote like every sci-fi film ever. Like he wrote the original stories that every sci-fi film was based on.
Right. And as cynical as Black Mirror.
No, yeah, it isn't as cynical as Black Mirror. I know, and it's got some good people behind it. Bryan Cranston's involved in it. I think they also had a like Star Trek parody kind of episode in the trailer for it. So it's actually like interesting that we're getting like two of those. Right. That's just interesting that we have like two anthology Twilight Zone-esque sci-fi shows at all. So yeah, if you want a little bit of a happier side of Black Mirror, check out Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams on Amazon. It'll be available by the time this podcast is out. Then on Sunday, January 14th, 2018, Victoria comes back to PBS. Divorce comes back to HBO, and a show you liked, Will, Crashing, is back on HBO.
Oh, that's okay. I wasn't expecting that to come back. Nice.
Yeah, that's going to be this Sunday. Then on Monday, January 15th, 2018, it's the big like CW comeback. Supergirl comes back on the CW. Then on Tuesday, January 16th, The Flash comes back, and Black Lightning, which is like a new series that I think it's like, I guess initially not in the same universe as The Flash and Arrow, but with the possibility of being in it later in the same way Supergirl was.
Yeah, I mean, always a possibility, right?
Yeah, it's like they're probably eventually going to cross it over, but when they originally wrote it, it was supposed to be on a different channel, so it's kind of unrelated. Then on Wednesday, January 17th, 2018, Riverdale's back on CW. Like I said, it's like all the CW shows back this week, but we also get The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story on FX. This is like the second season of that anthology series where the first one was about the O.J. Simpson trial. That one won like a ton of awards and stuff. This one's about Gianni Versace.
Okay.
The Path comes back to Hulu. That's kind of like their cult series. It's got Aaron Paul in it, and Hugh Dancy from Hannibal is in it as well. And Corporate is a new comedy on Comedy Central. Then on Thursday, January 18th, 2018, Portlandia is back on IFC. Beyond is back on Freeform. Scandal's back on ABC. And as we said before, it's CW. So it's CW week. So Arrow and Supernatural are both back as well. And then on Friday, January 19th, 2018, a week from now, High Maintenance is back on HBO and Grace and Frankie is back on Netflix. So we're into the winter season now, and like the fall season, that just means a ton of shows coming back. Not a lot so far that are like big, stellar, tentpole shows for us in particular. I guess like the CW shows are, all coming back. So that's one thing, but it's not like, we're getting Game of Thrones and then Taboo and then Legion all at the same time. Those tend to be a little bit closer to spring. Well, not Game of Thrones, but the other ones tend to be closer to around spring. So, but we're going to be having this constant deluge of shows coming back in the next couple of weeks and months ahead. So, but that's what's coming up this week. So until then, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will on Twitter. He is at Voxel Hero. And check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, TVEnthusiast.com. And you can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. One last note before we leave. Last night, from when we recorded this, so on Wednesday, we recorded a 2-hour plus long podcast about Nintendo and the year in Switch 2017 and what we thought was coming forward for 2018. This was before the Nintendo Direct that occurred on Thursday, today for us recording it, but we'd recorded it before then. But it's Will and I, as well as some people from the Nintendo Enthusiast forums. So if you want to check that out as well, go to TVEnthusiast.com, check the main story for this episode, and I'll have a link to it in there. And you can check that out. So, thank you everybody for listening. This is TV Enthusiast tuning out.
Bye.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage of all of your favorite shows.